As landmark heroes of science fiction go, Sigourney Weaver's Ripley from Alien is up there in the first tier. And the good news is that just this week it's been confirmed she'll be returning to the character in the next film in the Alien franchise, with South African director Neil Blomkamp at the helm. Blomkamp made his name with District 9, a sympathetic portrayal of aliens trapped and misunderstood by humans, and a clear metaphor for the legacy of apartheid. The news of the Alien sequel coincides with the release of Blomkamp's new film, Chappie, also starring Weaver, which takes a similarly political angle on the issue of artificial intelligence and the cycle of inner-city violence. Sigourney Weaver plays Michelle Bradley, the CEO of a defence company turning a good profit making police droids to keep Johannesburg's violent gangs under control. And she's not interested when an ambitious programmer comes to her with a prototype robot that can think and feel. Dev Patel and Sigourney Weaver in Chappie. So how did Weaver approach playing the hard-nosed corporate CEO?
Well, I thought it was very interesting to take on the role of a woman CEO, especially a woman who's running an armaments corporation. And I saw my job actually as kind of a whack-a-mole. I have all these geniuses working under me to create new forms of robots and new forms of weapons. And they're all sort of eccentric, and my job is to make sure they stay on track doing what, to me, is practical. So I don't think I'm the greatest CEO in that I cannot comprehend the potential of a robot like Chappie, because I can't see any use for a robot that paints and writes poetry. Whereas I, Sigourney, could, but I, Michelle, would want to whack-a-mole that idea.
What's really striking about the film, and as with kind of Neil Blomkamp's previous film, District 9, is it's very connected to current affairs. The whole idea of police violence, the whole idea of the cycle of violence with young people being brought into gangs. What made you want to take it on? And indeed, had you seen District 9, which of course presents aliens in an opposite way to Alien?
Yes, I'd seen District 9 about 3 times and was a huge fan of Neil's because, as you say, these films are set in the very near future. It feels like about 10 minutes away. And his issues are extremely current. And the movies ask questions of us that we need to be asking now, not in the future, of our relationships with each other, our relationships to business, our relationships to technology. Because, in fact, I think robots will solve a lot of problems, but they will also no doubt create a lot of problems.
I gather that on the set of Chappie, you and Neil Blomkamp were talking about his ideas for an Alien sequel. What did you discuss?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that we started chatting about his love for these movies, because I guess he wore the tapes out when he was a kid. And I think I said something like, yeah, you know, it's a pity that a series of stories which we worked so hard on were just sort of left up in space. And in a way, to me, kind of demeaned by things like Alien versus Predator, which I never saw. And then I said, oh, I really have to talk to Jim Cameron about it, who is almost the busiest man in the world with Avatar. And he said, oh, don't talk to him about it. Talk to me about it. So then we just started to talk about it, and we just talked about what we loved about the movies and what we didn't like about some of them. And then it just grew from there. It was a very organic conversation and a very personal one. And because I'd read a lot of scripts and never even been tempted to
Alien
go back.
scripts.
Yeah.
What did they got wrong that you think Neil might have got right?
Oh, I don't want to sound critical. They weren't convincing to me. They were made-up stories about the future. And what I loved about Neil's take on it was that it was almost as if no time had passed.
I was wondering how acting has changed. When you made Alien, it was very much a kind of physical analog special effects kind of film. And then I think of something like Ghostbusters, which had sort of very primitive green screen technology. And Chappie, you can't tell that he's not a real person in terms of his interaction. How has acting changed for you in some of these films, and thinking of James Cameron's films as well?
Well, performance capture, which is what we did in Chappie and what we did in Avatar, is quite different from CGI, just pure CGI. It's very much based on what's going on with the actor our emotions, our motions, our facial expressions. I think people still think that in Avatar we were voicing animated creatures, but in fact that was all us.
I'm interested that you've played a range of characters, but often people who've played a defining kind of action hero early on, as you have with Ripley, can sometimes feel defined by it and want to get away. You don't have that relationship with Ripley, but you have kind of happily maintained a relationship with her. And I wonder why, what the secret is to that. Well, and indeed, do you feel protective of her?
Yes, I guess I do. I guess I would like Ripley to be at rest one of these years. You know, originally I didn't really want to do movies. I wanted to be like a serious theater actress. And I ended up, you know, in this movie with Ridley Scott playing what I considered sort of my breeches part, Ripley. And I just felt like I was not even a man or woman. I felt I was every person in that situation, you know, and that was so exciting to play. But I would always do a lot of other stuff in between. And in fact, once we did the fourth one, I was ready to, I really hated this idea of churning out another one and trying to cash in on the success of the earlier ones. I felt they'd made a terrible mistake with Alien versus Predator. And, you know, I
have to say, as a certain kind of cult following among very young teenage boys.
Well, and I've never seen them, so I don't know what I'm talking about, except I don't think the alien is victorious, which is one reason why I wouldn't bother to see them. I'm definitely on his side. But I felt always lucky. The character was big enough for me to always find more with her.
I have to confess, my favourite film of yours is Working Girl, where you play Catherine Parker, the kind of evil Wall Street
a kind of cousin
woman.
To Michelle Bradley.
Yes, but it was also interesting because you had a lot of fun with that role. You were Oscar nominated, but it was an 80s film and it played with this idea of the kind of the unhuman, powerful woman.
Yeah.
What's your view on roles for women and how they've changed? Because you seem to have taken them on with glee and never been defined by them, but people are still arguing about what women get in terms of roles.
I think it's hard for men and women to find interesting roles. And I figure as an actor, you're given a certain amount of space and time in a movie, and then it's your job to fill that with as much as you can. And so I feel Michelle Bradley had a lot of potential, and I wanted to make her as juicy as I could. So, I mean, I think I have this long-range view of acting because my mentors were Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy. So I don't care if the part is small or big or a comedy or a drama. If the story is worth telling and it's about something more than just the people in it, then I'd like to be part of that. And if it doesn't do any of those things, I don't want to do it.
Sigourney Weaver. Chappie is in cinemas this Friday, Certificate 15.